So yeah, no shirt and tie today. It's too hot. All right, let's go ahead and say the pledge and then get rolling. Are you ready, Ken?
We're getting it dialed in here. We need to have you and the board in that.
Well, I tend to want to stand over here, so make sure you.
Because I don't want to cut your head off either, like I just did.
I don't want to do that.
No.
There's already other people want to chop my head off, and I don't need to, you know.
You don't need any help? Well, shoot, we're getting part of the board. That's pretty good.
Wait, you think I'm fearful of saying stuff like that? Come on. No fear. No fear. All right, please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, preamble tonight. Same handout, lesson 1. But I did make, and this was actually for the Wednesday class, I thought you guys would enjoy them too. I did make some worksheets. That first page I went over last week in historical influences. So if you want to fill that out later, remember.
No one's here yet.
And if you want to go over it later, if we have some time, we will. But really, I want to roll on the preamble. And the preamble was, matter of fact, go to your second page on your worksheet. This will be one of your questions. The preamble is the introduction to the U.S. Constitution, and it is not legally binding, has no legal authority. All right, so the preamble is an introduction. So in other words, when I say it has no legal authority, in other words, technically your Congress or anybody else in the federal government can't say, oh, I can do it because it says so in the preamble. Well, it has no legal authority. This is all it is, an introduction. And what it's designed to do, and I'm going to, I already got pins up here. And I'm going to draw you a diagram, and on the very last page you have a space for it, if you want to draw it. I'm going to draw you a diagram to help you understand the preamble. But first I want to go through the language real quick. And so we can break down the language a little bit, and then we'll do the diagram, and it'll make sense. So, we the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide for common defense, and promote the general welfare, secure the blessings of liberty, and
to ourselves.
To ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. I was going to do it by heart, and for some reason my brain froze right there at that last part. All right, so let's break down the language. We the people of the United States. We the people has been used by anti-constitutional forces as evidence that we are a democracy. While we the people is important, and in the Declaration of Independence it says consent to the governed, and that's important, it's more than just we the people. We're not a pure democracy. It's not all about just what the people want. Whenever it is, it's actually very destructive. Remember last week we were talking about Greece. Matter of fact, the folks that couldn't make it tonight, I'll send them the link to the video once we have it on air. On YouTube. And by the way, hi YouTube people, welcome. Anyway, so we're not a pure democracy. In the Greek states, they learned how dangerous a democracy is, because what happens is, in a pure democracy, everything's voted on by the people. People get their way. It's the will of the people all the time. Every day, same bat channel, same bat time. It's always the people. And what happens is, once the people realize they can start voting themselves gifts from the Treasury and subsidies and things like that, welfare, whatever, then what eventually happens is it creates an economic situation that the civilization cannot survive, where the takers begin to outnumber the producers, and even the producers stop producing, because why should they? It's like if you were in a college class, and matter of fact, there's this video that I saw on YouTube not too long ago with Obama and Ronald Reagan talking. And Ronnie is explaining this to Obama. And I'd actually seen this video years ago, but I came across it again and put it on my Facebook page just like a couple days ago. It's a cartoon.
Oh.
But Obama is talking about how wonderful what he does is, and Reagan. It's like, well, here, let me tell you a story. And it's got this classroom, and in the classroom is Hillary and Bill. It's kind of hilarious. They throw in some jokes. But anyway, and basically the story is in the classroom is, so we're going to believe in redistribution of wealth, socialism, and everybody pays a fair share. All the grades will be average. So whoever gets A's and whoever gets the lowest grade, they're all going to, whatever the average is, that's what everybody's going to get. And so, and in the beginning, it's kind of okay, you know, everybody gets a B. Because the producers, the high kids are still getting their high A's, and there's only a few of them that are getting F's, and so everybody gets a B in the class. Everybody's actually happy with that. And then later on, you know, they redo tests and assignments, and suddenly it's dropped to a C, then to a D, and eventually by the end of the class, everybody's got an F. Because what has happened is, the people who weren't working are working even less, because they know it doesn't matter what they do, they're still going to get the average, which is higher than what they would produce. And the producers, the higher grades, they're going, well, why should I be busting my buns so hard for these guys? So they study less, and so they start getting back, and eventually everybody's got F's. And that's kind of the problem here. So we're not supposed to be a pure democracy, and we're not supposed to be socialism or collectivism. We the people of the United States. The we the people, we talked about this last week, came from in the Magna Carta, if you'll remember. We were talking about this 1215, and it was the barons who wanted this Magna Carta because the king's government wasn't abiding by the Saxon system of limited government. And it began any baron. And then they realized, well, you know what? Really, it's not just about the barons, it's about all of the freemen, so they changed it to any freeman. That concept of any freeman, all freemen, eventually translated into we the people. That's where that idea comes from. So we the people, but then there's this other part after we the people. It's more than just the people. It's more than just this quote-unquote idea of democracy, which, you know, there was some democratic processes involved in our system, but for the most part, as a republic, it's not a pure democracy because there's other mechanisms. It's we the people of the United States, or shall I rephrase that from their point of view, of these states that are united. And the states, like we the people, are also constituencies in this system. Their voice was just as important as we the people's. So we the people of the United States, in order to, okay, that's telling us, all right, there's a reason, in order to. So the preamble is an introduction that's given us the reason of something. What is that something? The very next part is in order to form a more perfect union. There's this union of states. They're individual little countries. So remember, the founding fathers and the people of that time period didn't consider themselves Americans. They considered themselves citizens of their states. And their states were citizens of the country, voluntary members of this union. So we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, more perfect. So it was pretty good before, but it needs to be more perfect. Well, what was it before? Articles of Confederation was the Constitution before the Constitution. The Articles of Confederation was written, as we talked about last week, during the Revolutionary War. It was kind of hastily put together, and it was really, it says it in its name, it was a confederation. In a confederation, it's a union, but all of the member states of that union hold on to all power. The only authority that the government under the Articles of Confederation really had was the ability to declare war. That was it. It was up to the states to decide whether or not to provide their militias for that war. It was up to the states on regarding trade, regarding immigration, whatever it was, the states held all powers other than declaration of war. And so, and it was a fine union. The states liked it because they held on to all their powers, but the problem was they called Shays' Rebellion, which we once again talked about last week, which showed them that the Articles of Confederation was too weak. What they needed was a stronger government. What they had was a lamb, what they needed was a lion, but the problem with lions was lions eat people, so how do you create a lion but keep it from eating you? You put shackles on it, you put it in a cage. That's the U.S. Constitution. So in order to form a more perfect union, something better than what was under the Articles of Confederation. All right, establish justice. The word establish, what does that mean? Establish is to...
There was nothing there before.
There was nothing there before. So you're creating, you're developing because it didn't exist before. Well, there's a clue for us, actually. Because, see, this document was written to create a federal government. And it applies to the federal government. And that's a clue because, well, let me ask you a question. Did justice exist prior to the Constitution in the colonies or the states under the Articles of Confederation? Did justice, In other words, a legal system with courts and judges exist prior to this. Yeah, but at the state level, each state had its own judicial system. There was no federal judicial system. There was no federal justice. So that's where the word established comes in. It's creating something that didn't exist before. Justice existed at the state level. So this tells us, okay, so that's a clue that this applies to the federal government. It's not for the states. It's the states that are creating the federal government through this. The states are the parents over this federal government they're creating. Maybe we should call it a Frankenstein monster at this point, but nonetheless, they are the parents. They are the Dr. Frankensteins who created this monster. All right, so establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Why is that so important? Well, for those of you who've had siblings, you'll understand this. My sister and I used to fight like cats and dogs. I hope my sister watches this video. She'll probably get a kick out of it. She was pulling so much hair out of my head that my parents thought I had bald spots. And I did. She'd go through my hair, brushing my hair or something. She'd be like, Jerry, come here, look at this. He's got bald spots. This kid losing his hair? No, his sister's ripping all the hair out of his head. Oh, one time I finally got back at her with my buck teeth and drove them into her forehead. And she wound up with stitches, and it worked out nicely for me until I got in trouble for it. But anyway, but because that's what siblings do, they fight. My brother and sister, see, here's where, sorry for the side note, but this is actually kind of good. My poor sister was in the middle. He was younger than her. My brother's 4.5 years young. So by the time I moved out, he was old enough to start giving her hell. So when I was done with her, it was time for my brother's turn on her, and he was even more brutal. You know, I mean, I've heard stories of times where, you know, she'd be hiding in the bathroom, and he'd be trying to get in, she'd open it and spray, you know, hairspray in his eyes, and then close it, you know, stuff like that. Anyway, that's what siblings do. They fight like this. The colonies, the states, they did the same thing. They're siblings. They fought over everything to ensure domestic tranquility. Well, now, how does the federal government ensure domestic tranquility? Well, when there's an argument between the states, well, have you ever been in mediation when there's an argument between two people? What happens? Mediator comes in and says, here's this side, here's that side, and then they try to come to an agreement that's good for both sides. Federal, in disagreements between the states, is to be a mediator. Okay? Provide for the common defense. More perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense. That's pretty obvious, right? Common defense, all of their defense. Army, Navy, then there's this thing I've heard of called the Marine Corps. And then, yeah, which is one part of the, yeah, I love my, I you know, tease them and say, yeah, when you get your checks, what did it say? Department of the Navy. They didn't like that part. But then they would say, yeah, but we were the men's department, and then I'd say something like, yeah, well, you guys are at boot camp for 12 weeks instead of 8, and they said, what's wrong with that? And I said, well, it just takes you guys longer to learn stuff. So, you know, I mean, you know, we'd have fun with it. But anyway, so you got your military, you got your common defense, and that's important. Then after that, it says promote the general welfare. And I'm going to get into that more in more detail in a little bit, but notice the word promote. It doesn't say guarantee, it doesn't say ensure, it says promote. Because general welfare is not an excuse for them to do things. It's a condition that happens if they're doing their job. I'll get more into that in a minute. And secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Secure the blessings of liberty. We talked about secure last week. Secure. The federal government's not there to guarantee your rights. The federal government's not there to protect your rights. The federal government was created, and government in general is there to secure your rights. Why would you want the federal government protecting your rights when they are the greatest threat against your rights? That's like, yeah, you know, you ask the federal government to hold up a shield against themselves. Well, that's completely ridiculous. Well, your rights, well, so they can start defining what those rights are? No. If you look at the Declaration of Independence, and security means to hold in place, to keep it working. You know, it's like you put a car seat, not to procure the child. It's not just where they're at. And then by not driving like an idiot. Okay, so secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Look at those words, ourselves and posterity. Ourselves is lowercase, posterity is capitalized. during this time period, because they weren't typing, they were handwriting, they didn't use italics for emphasis, they capitalized often for emphasis. The emphasis is on the word posterity. So what they're saying here is, yeah, we're securing blessings of liberty for ourselves, lowercase o, but especially for our posterity, capital P, those not yet born. In other words, yeah, they did it for themselves, but they especially did it for you, future generations, those not yet born. That's what that means. That's why that capital is. Every single thing in this Constitution was carefully done. Capitalizations, punctuation, everything. My only complaint about any of it, and I only have one, is in Article 1, Section 8, they use the word an, before a word that starts with a consonant. We'll get to that. Or has a consonant sound, I should say. Not before a consonant. They do it before a vowel, but it's a consonant sound. So technically, it should be the word a. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to Article 1, Section 8. So, and to ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Let's break it down. Let's make ourselves a little diagram here. So we've got these different sections. We got 4 sections. Preamble can be broken up into 4 sections. Introduction. We the people of the United States, in order to. We the people of the United States, in order to. That is our introduction. Okay? If you want to write it all out in the very top little part of your box, you can. And it gives us 4 reasons why. In other words, the in order tos. There's 4 in order tos. In order to. What's the first one?
Form a more perfect union.
Form a more perfect union. Okay, number 1 reason. Form a more perfect union. If we don't have a good union, none of the other things matter. We want the union to be solid. We want it to be a good union. Form a more perfect states where they're working together nicely. So next one, ensure domestic tranquility, right? I love the way ensure is spelled.
No, number 2 is establish justice.
Oh, I'm sorry, establish justice, you're right. Thank you. Establish justice. That's what I get for not looking. Okay, we already talked about that, right? Okay, now ensure domestic tranquility. I love the way ensure is spelled. With an I, like insurance. Get insurance. It's ensure. I said, wow. That's a pretty quick, what'd you do? Drive on the shoulder? Or you just get lucky with the traffic there?
More lucky. I didn't break too many laws. Hello, good to see you.
Hey, all right, so we got another student just walked in, so for you fake YouTube people, that's why. All right, so ensure, I-N-S-U-R-E, ensure domestic tranquility. I'm going to abbreviate here because I want to write it all out. Okay, we talked about that. States are fighting. We need to ensure domestic tranquility, allow the federal government to become this mediator between the states. And then at the bottom, common defense. I'm gonna spell it the way we spell it, not the way they do. They spell it with a C. It was old. It was the Queen's English, I guess. All right, so those are the 4 reasons. Reasons for the creation of the federal government through the Constitution. Form a more perfect union. Establish justice. Ensure domestic tranquility. Common defense. Common defense is 4th on the list. Back then they used an English style that put things in order of importance. Why would common defense be, it's important enough to be on the list, but it's last of the 4. Form a more perfect union. Establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and at the bottom, common defense. Why do you think that is? Why do you think they would make it last of those reasons? It seemed like less important. It's not really less important, but you know, they
Well, the other ones you're doing all the time. You're not going to be at war all the time.
okay, so you're not at war all the time, it's part of it. How about this? They were scared to death of a standing army, the people. So while common defense was important, they wanted to be such a power that it could be used against people. So, yeah, we need common defense reasons, not as a standing army. So let's place it a little bit lower on the importance line there. All right, so now we have 2, as a result, results. So I'll write results right here. So, in other words, if these things are achieved, these things will happen. Understand? All right, so we got promote the general welfare. What do you remember what we were talking about when it came to ourselves and posterity, the differences in capitalization? Notice in promote general welfare, promote the general welfare, general is lowercase, welfare is capitalized. Welfare is the key word there. It's the important word. Right? So promote the general welfare. What does welfare mean? And please don't receive a government check.
EBT.
EBT. I warned you about that.
All is well.
All's well.
For the
How about a
For the good.
condition of all's well? So if you're taking care of these things, it will result in a condition that all's well. Well, what kind of condition of all's well? Well, a general condition that all's well throughout the country. General welfare, promote. Now, I'm sure, but promote general welfare. They can promote it, but it's still up to your local governments also to be a part of promoting general welfare. They can't ensure it. See, the word ensure was for domestic, right? They're not going to establish general welfare. They're not going to provide general welfare. It's being promoted.
It's not what Pelosi thinks.
And don't get me started on, well, you know, Pelosi got very upset when she heard that the plastic straws were going to be banned. And she had to be explained to, they didn't mean plastic surgery, only plastic straws. Okay, sorry, I had to throw that one in there. I think that's why she never smiles. She's afraid her face will crack. But anyway, what's the other one? We talked about it. Secure, right? Secure the blessings of liberty. All right, so got a better red pen over here, I think. I got a bunch of new pens in my car, and I keep forgetting to bring them in. That I bought. You know, the 99-cent store pens are awesome. I should have known that years ago. But anyway, okay. So, form more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, common defense. Reasons for the creation of this new central government, this lion that we got to keep in a cage and keep it within restraints because we don't want it to eat the people. But we want to be strong enough for common defense, so we need the lion. Want it strong enough to, you know, do things like secure the border, so we need the lion lining us. And if these things are taken care of, we all is well, and our blessings of liberty. Then you have the conclusion. Yeah, that's a pin. I knew it was in there somewhere. Conclusion. Do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States. Do ordain, ... Ordain and establish. Ordain. Well, that sounds almost like a religious word, don't it? Of course, the word shall is in here a lot. Did you know the word God is not actually mentioned in the Constitution? But the Lord is. Year of our Lord. There in the 7th article. But yet God permeates this Constitution, doesn't it? The principles are all. Matter of fact, I remember my mom telling me one time. She says, "You know, Doug, now that I understand the Constitution, my Bible studies are so different. I can see the founding fathers in my Bible studies." I don't know if you read this on Political Pistachio. My mom's here. Political Pistachio. This is for the YouTube people too. Do you know that Jesus said, "Keep and bear arms"? We talked about this last week too, we brought it up. What was it, Luke what again? Do you remember? You gonna look it up again for me, or do I have to? It's in Luke, and about him, you know, if he,
Luke 14.
yeah, I can't remember the exact verse now, but it basically says that if you have no sword, sell your things and buy a sword. It's in Book of Luke. So I actually wrote an article on my politicalpistachio.com site, and I titled it, "Jesus said, keep and bear arms." I'm sure heads were exploding, anti-constitutionalist people out there, when they saw that title.
Well, remember back in, what was it, 90s, we were called terrorists, remember?
Yeah, well, it's like I explained to people, there are, let's see, what is it, 70 million guns in the United States? 100, or something, or not 70 million, 700, what is it? Yeah, is it that many? Yeah, I think that's the right number.
300 something
It's too, beginning of
Yeah,
2000.
well, legally owned, registered firearms. I'm sure there's more.
Luke
Well,
22,
And there's hundreds and hundreds of,
22:36.
Luke 22:36. Thank you. And there's even more rounds of ammo out there. And they're wanting gun control because they think we're dangerous. If there's that many guns and that much ammo out there, if we were a problem, wouldn't they know it?
They would.
Just saying.
Well,
So what are they afraid of?
They haven't pushed the button yet. Yeah, okay. Anyway, all right, so there's our preamble. In a nutshell. Yeah, pistachio nutshell. Political, people tell me that it seems like it's like jelly beans were wrong. Pistachio is expensive than jelly beans. So it's because I get them as gifts. So if anybody wants to donate to politicalpistachio.com, douglasvegans.com, so I can buy pistachios, hey, yeah, that's the reason. Anyway, it actually helps fund these classes, things like that. So if you can help, that's great. But anyway, now let's read it again. Now that we kind of understand it, now it's going to make a little more sense when we read it, right? So we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility. Look at that capital T on tranquility. Provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty, capital, to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. That's the preamble. Introduction, it's not important. Make a little more sense now, the preamble to you? Now you're gonna score higher on the test? A few weeks ago I gave a test to these guys, some of them been in this class for a while. And it was fun. But one of my students was very upset because every time she'd miss one, she'd like pull it, I don't understand, I should have got that right. So I'm sure she's ready for the next round. After we get through the Constitution one more time, she's taking notes now. Note takers always score higher. So if you're taking notes, that's a good thing. You should be taking notes. If you didn't take notes, rewind, go back to the beginning, watch the video again, start taking notes. All right. So any questions, any comments, anything you would like to add?
Well, this week I heard that the Antifa crowd and the others on that side want to protest the Constitution because it's anti-democracy, and I just laughed and said, well, you're right.
He says, Antifa says they want to protest the Constitution as anti-democracy. He says, well, yeah, you're right. How about remember the Ferguson riots and Baltimore and all that, and they get in the camera and they say, this is what democracy looks like. And I responded, yeah, that's exactly what, mob rule, that's exactly what democracy looks like. That's why we're not a democracy.
They're trying to turn it into a democracy.
They're trying to turn it into a democracy. When do you think that began?
Don't
About
know.
100 years, 200 years ago.
Right out the gate, right away. Joanne nailed it. Right out the gate. 5 times. Oh, was that you? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It was Mom. For some reason, I thought it was Joanne. I'm trying to give Joanne kudos that she hasn't gotten on her test yet. So now they're patting each other on the back, high-fiving, fist bumps. 5 times in the Federalist Papers, James Madison wrote and explained the difference between a democracy and a republic. Why do you think he felt the need to explain the difference between a democracy and a republic 5 times in the Federalist Papers? Because there were those out there that were against the Constitution who were trying to convince the people there was no difference between a democracy and a republic, because they wanted us to be more of a democracy. Why would they want us to be more of a democracy? And we talked about this once again last week when we talked about the political spectrum. Remember the political spectrum? You know, kind of looks like this, right? You got 100% government here, 0% Constitution in the middle. Remember that? So why do they want us to be more democratic? Because tyranny, it can be transitioned into through democracy. Democracy is a transitional system, just like anarchy is. Anarchy is what? No government? But the people who call for anarchy, do they really want no government? What happens when there's no government, there's chaos, and the people start realizing it's not good. They start crying out for order, and guess who usually grabs hold of the reins for order? Those who caused the anarchy in the first place. They created the anarchy because it was a transitional, their oligarchy, to their control, their authoritarianism. Democracy is exactly the same kind of transitional system. They wanted democracy because they know once it's a democracy, they can fool the people to vote them into power, and then it becomes an oligarchy. Yes, ma'am.
Tell the story of the cowboy, I love that.
The story of the cowboy. Okay,
I love that.
we got plenty of time, so you're going to enjoy this.
Somebody just stated we have a democratic republic.
We do not have a democratic republic. We have a republic.
Okay,
In fact, and we'll go over this when we proceed to Article 1. The only purely democratic part of our government was voting for, when it came to the federal government, was voting for the House of Representatives. The popular vote, the democratic vote of the people did not matter on the other things for a reason, and we'll get into that. Now, people get nervous. They say, well, what about the will of peoples? Hey, will of peoples fine as long as it's constitutional.
Yeah.
We have a rule of law that's more important. Yeah. Well, let's tell the story about the cowboy. My mom asked for the story of the cowboy, and actually, this is a John Birch Society story. I don't know if you knew that. That's where I originally got it. It's of the Overview of America video, and I'm not a member of the John Birch Society, but they're allies on 98, 99% of the time. I mean, we're arm in arm in agreement. Matter of fact, I got to tell you guys later on about an event I'm going to be in LA on September 28th or 29th. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. I'm going to be on a panel, constitutional panel. Well, one of the other persons on that panel is from John Birch Society. He was concerned with I being on the same panel because while we agree on 99% of things, there was one thing we disagree on called convention, and he didn't agree.
Okay, go
And what I told the guy who called me during a convention. But anyway, okay.
the cowboy.
So about the cowboy. So we're in the Old West, and we got the murderer together. They go out there, they bring him back. They vote 49-1 to hang him. They throw the rope over the highest branch of the tree, noose, and they hang him. Democracy is one. There's one less murderer. In a republic, it's a little different. Posse goes out there, they find him, they bring him in, they're ready to hang him, they vote 49-1 to hang him, and then before they get a chance to put that noose around the guy's neck, the sheriff shows up and says, wait a second, boys. He has his rights. He has a right to a fair trial. He has a right to a speedy trial. He has his rights. And then even if it goes to trial, it's not a majority, it's got to be unanimous by the jury, without a shadow of a doubt. That's a republic. That's one example. Rule of law. We talked about it last time. We broke down republic and democracy. Republic comes from the words in Latin, res publica, law, or the public law.
And that's
the public law.
And that comes from what parts? I mean, the root.
Res means rule. It comes from rule, and publica is public.
And that's Greek.
It's and it's a public rule or public law. It's Latin. No, I believe it's Latin. And then democracy comes from demos gratias, or oh my God. But look it up. It's actually pretty accessible on this thing called the internet that I use every once in a while. Which sometimes I don't want to trust because of certain things going on. Like all of my emails that go to everybody goes into the spam boxes, except for maybe you guys. You guys get my emails. All right, well, I'm up from like 26% to 2.5% in the last couple months. But anyway, so that's, get back to the Cowboys on democracy, republic. We're not a democracy. We're not a democratic republic. We are a republic. We're supposed to only be a republic. Now, I will admit, we're starting to act like a democratic republic. Everybody's convinced that's what we are. Matter of fact, have you heard the new keywords, code words that are on the media? We're a liberal democracy. Have you heard that one?
What?
Oh yeah, we're called a liberal democracy. Even Fox News is starting to use that term. We're a liberal democracy, and only liberal democracies can survive, and we must save our democracy. And then wonderful, I'm not going to name names because it's YouTube, but wonderful, Republican conservative pundits get on, Fox and One American News and Newsmax, and they say, our democracy, and I go, no! One of them, who's one of the top, radio hosts in the nation, says, well, we got to do something to save our democratic republic. No! Or he'll say democracy, one or the other, it depends. Some of you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, the three co-equal guy.
But
the three co-equal branches of government guy, yeah.
But if
Which we'll
they're,
get into that next week, actually.
but if they're using liberal, that they're wanting to change the understanding of what it's all about.
It's all about changing the lexicon, and this is nothing new. When I say lexicon, I mean the language, and it's nothing new. Remember, okay, we already talked about why James Madison had to explain the difference between democracy and republic. We already talked about that, okay? Well, how about federalism? Federalist. What is a federalist? A federalist, in its meaning, definition, is someone who belongs in this federal system of a republic through our Constitution. In other words, a federalist is a constitutionalist. Well, the persons who were enemies of the Constitution didn't think it created a big enough government, wanted to go further. Yeah, I guess in many ways you say they were our first progressives, led by Alexander Hamilton, created a political party that did not like the Constitution, didn't feel like it went far enough, wanted bigger government, but what did they call their party? The Federalist Party. It was a lie out the gate. There was nothing federalist about them. What they were was a collectivist party. Or a socialist party before it was called socialism. Yes, it would have been a utopianist party. Or whatever the term you want to use at the time. Communitarian party would be another one. All right? So it was a play on words. How about the word liberal? The founding fathers considered themselves liberals. They were classical liberals. They considered themselves liberals who wanted a new world order. Could you imagine walking in, a matter of fact, I did this. So Corona Tea Party one time. I walked in and I said, and I was the speaker, and I said, welcome all you Democrats. Liberal Democrats who want a new world order. And they went, what? So actually, the Democrat Party was originally Jefferson's Republicans.
I thought Jackson was.
But Andrew Jackson, it changed into the Democratic Party.
Okay.
And they considered themselves liberal at the time, and they considered this a new world order, especially since it was in the New World, and that was the Old World. So, the founding fathers, liberal Democrats who believed in the New World Order, but they really weren't Democrats. Their party would become the Democrat Party later. The lexicon, though, has been changed, hasn't it? The word liberal always meant constitutionalist. Well, in the 1880s, the progressives, based on the teachings of the Fabians was a socialist group out of Great Britain, and so the progressives rose up through the Fabians, and they were putting in place all these policies, and by the time of Woodrow Wilson came along, who was really our first quote-unquote true progressive president. I would like to say that Teddy Roosevelt in many ways was too. But the problem is progressive policies were failing. And calling themselves progressive became a negative. So they had to start calling themselves something else. Well, those people called themselves liberals. They were pretty popular. We'll just take that term. And they did. So they started calling themselves liberals, proclaiming they were the actual constitutionalists. And ever since then, liberalism has been applied to, which isn't really about progress at all, but that's a whole different argument.
Well, it's like the alt-right
Yeah.
isn't really right.
Well, yeah, well, the alt-right isn't even on the right. When you break it down, they're just as liberal or leftist or whatever as the leftists.
But it's the
What
way-
they believe is the same stuff.
It's the way of categorizing.
Well, I got the Nazis at the far right. But what is Nazi? National Socialist German Workers' Party. It's a socialist. Well, if the socialists are the left, why aren't the Nazis the left? Well, it's a confusion. It's back to that democracy is republic kind of thing. It's a confusion of language because they want you confused. And it started at the beginning. And let me explain something to you. And I get this all the time. We got just a couple more minutes. And people say to me all the time, say, Doug, yeah, okay, great, but you know what? I don't think the founding fathers really saw it coming. They didn't realize it was going to be this bad. They didn't see the Obama coming. They didn't see the Clintons coming. They didn't understand how bad it was going to be. And I said, darn tootin' they did. That's why they wrote the Constitution the way they did. The problem isn't how the Constitution was written. The problem is we haven't maintained it and defended it. The Constitution is fine. Problem is we believe so many things that are not true. And that's part of the reason why I do this. Like the 3 co-equal branches of government thing. We don't have 3 co-equal branches of government. We'll get into that next week. And so we've got this lexicon. We got this change of things. And I like to bring up Samuel Adams, for example, because Samuel Adams talked about a redistribution of wealth. But he didn't call it that. He called it the schemes of leveling. That was his term. They knew about communism, socialism. Karl Marx wasn't even born yet. They called it utopianism or communitarianism or collectivism, which are really more accurate terms than communism and socialism per se. And understand that Lenin said that socialism is just the first step towards communism. Now, Ayn Rand said that socialism and communism, the difference is that communism is socialism by force, and socialism is communism by suicide. I'm here to tell you there's no difference. All these terms, Marxism, communism, socialism, leftism, progressivism, communitarianism, utopianism, use them all. Democrat, partyism, Obamanism, that's all the same stuff. It's the same thing. There's no difference. All right, next week, Article 1, Section 1, we're going to get into the legislative branch. I'm going to explain separation of powers. I'm going to explain that we don't have 3 co-equal branches of government. Matter of fact, in my first book, 25 Myths of the Constitution, that's the first thing I addressed. We have been told since we were knee-high to a grasshopper that we have 3 co-equal branches of government. That's not true. And I'm going to explain it next week. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for filming again. And we'll get this on politicalpistachio.com. I did put the video on last week. I don't know if you noticed. Hopefully the numbers were better than usual for you. And that tells me that they work. So I hope you enjoyed this. I don't know what the audio was like. We'll have the audio better again next week. Thank you for those of you who watched live. And also questions. I want you to contact me. constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com. constitutionspeaker@yahoo.com. Send me an email. Tell me what you think. Argue with me if you want. Don't worry.
You're welcome.
I'll set you straight. All right. Thank you.
You want to get the left one?
Bye.
All right, we're signing out. Thanks for being here.
All right. Appreciate the fact that you do this too. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.